Welcome to the Sand Science Experience, your source for the most current and impactful research and preprints in science. If you like what you hear today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It truly helps support the Sand Science Experience and allows us to keep bringing you these in-depth explorations of cutting-edge science. Okay, so let's get into it. Imagine we could rewind Earth's climate clock, not just a few decades or centuries, but hundreds of millions of years. What would that even look like? Well, that's pretty much what a groundbreaking new study has managed to do, giving us the most comprehensive look yet at our planet's temperature history over the last 485 million years.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. This research, using a new approach they call PhanDA, paints a surprisingly dynamic picture of Earth's global mean surface temperature. So our mission today is basically to explore this new history, understand how these past climates actually impact our understanding of the present, and maybe touch on what it could mean for our future.
Right. Now, many listening are probably familiar with modern climate science, but going back 485 million years, that's huge.
Yeah.
For people really following the field, why is understanding Earth's deep past temperature so crucial? How does it help refine what we know now?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. It gives us critical context for, present-day climate change. It helps us really nail down how climate connects with, everything else, the evolution and extinction of life, the chemistry of the atmosphere and oceans. And crucially, by looking at the relationship between past global temperatures and CO2 levels, we can refine our understanding of Earth's climate sensitivity. That's incredibly important for making better predictions about future warming.
That makes perfect sense. Context is everything. But reconstructing temperatures from 500 million years ago, that sounds incredibly difficult. What were the big challenges with earlier attempts?
You're right, it's a monumental task. The main issue was that the existing reconstructions for the Phanerozoic, that's the last 539 million years or so, often came out looking colder and less variable than specific estimates we had from key periods, especially those warmer, ice-free intervals, the so-called greenhouse periods. This sort of mismatch suggested that, maybe we were underestimating just how much temperatures had actually changed in the past. It definitely called for a new approach.
So if those older reconstructions showed a colder, less dynamic Earth, does that mean we might have been misinterpreting things? Like how life or geology responds to big temperature swings?
Precisely. It suggests our picture was incomplete, which could, skew our assumptions about how life adapted or how Earth systems behaved back then. Overcoming those limitations was clearly key.
Okay, so how did this new study tackle those problems? You mentioned a new methodology, PhanDA.
Exactly. They developed, PhanDA stands for Phanerozoic Data Assimilation. It's a statistically robust method, really solid. It cleverly integrates two key things. Geological proxy data, think sea surface temperatures derived from fossils, sediments, that kind of thing, in climate model simulations.
Combining the real-world evidence with the physics of the models.
Right. And the beauty of PhanDA is that it leverages the strengths of both. It updates multiple climate fields at once. It's less tied to the assumptions of any single model. It quantifies the uncertainty, which is huge, and importantly, it's fully reproducible. Other scientists can check the work, build on it.
That sounds like a much more powerful way to piece together the climate puzzle, combining the geological clues with the models, quantifying uncertainty. So what did PhanDA actually reveal? What's the big picture of Earth's temperature history, according to this new view?
The big picture is, dramatic. PhanDA shows Earth's global mean surface temperature, the GMST, varied hugely. From a low about 11 degrees Celsius in the late Pleistocene, that's relatively recent, geologically speaking, up to a really hot 36 degrees Celsius during the Turonian period in the late Cretaceous.
Wow, 11 to 36 C, that's a massive range, much bigger than previous studies suggested, right?
Significantly larger, yes. And that actually boosts our confidence because this wider range lines up much better with independent temperature estimates we have from periods we understand quite well, like the Cenozoic. What's also striking is how much time Earth spent in warmer states. These warm house and hot house conditions accounted for about 41% of the time studied. Compare that to cold house states like today, only about 13% of the time.
41% in warm or hot house conditions.
Yeah.
That really reframes things. Our current cold state is actually kind of the exception over the long haul. So how did this play out regionally? Did temperatures change evenly across the globe, or were there big differences, say, between the poles and the tropics?
Definitely big differences. PhanDA clearly shows what we call polar amplification. Temperature changes were much more pronounced at the high latitudes near the poles and the tropics. They weren't stable at all. Temperatures there ranged widely, from maybe 22 degrees C up to 42 degrees C.
42 degrees in the tropics. So much for the idea of a tropical thermostat keeping things stable there.
Exactly. This finding actively refutes that long-held idea. It really suggests that ancient life must have evolved mechanisms to cope with extreme heat. It raises fascinating questions about the upper thermal limits for complex life, especially when you consider some continental areas might have hit 45, even 50 degrees Celsius. Though even in those hot periods, the research suggests there were likely refugia areas, perhaps like parts of South America or India during the PTM, that stayed cooler and wetter, allowing life to persist.
Incredible. Life finding a way even in those extremes. I'd definitely be looking for one of those refugias. Okay, so we have this much more dynamic temperature history, these huge swings driven by what? What does PhanDA tell us about the main drivers of these massive climate shifts over millions of years?
Well, the clearest signal is CO2. PhanDA reveals a really strong relationship between the global mean surface temperature and atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. CO2 is pinpointed as the dominant control on climate variations throughout the Phanerozoic.
Okay, CO2 as the main driver. That aligns with what we understand about greenhouse gases. But you said the relationship was surprisingly consistent.
Yeah. Yes, and that is surprising because another major factor changed over this time: the sun. Solar luminosity has actually increased something like 4.2% since the Ordovician period, nearly 500 million years ago. So you'd expect that increasing solar energy to change the temperature relationship with CO2. The fact that the relationship remained pretty consistent suggests other factors must have been compensating, things like changes in Earth's reflectivity, the albedo, or maybe variations in other greenhouse gases like methane.
So the Earth system somehow balanced out the effects of a brighter sun to keep that CO2 temperature link relatively stable. That leads us to this concept of apparent Earth system sensitivity, or AESS. You mentioned a value of around 8 degrees C per doubling of CO2. Can you unpack that for us? How does that compare to the climate sensitivity figures we often hear about today?
Right, the AESS. Think of it as the planet's total long-term temperature response after CO2 doubles, once all the feedbacks have kicked in. This includes the fast ones we talk about today, cloud sea ice, but also the really slow ones, like the growth and decay of massive ice sheets over millennia. And importantly, it implicitly accounts for those other long-term changes, like the increasing solar brightness we just discussed, or shifts in continental positions and albedo. So this 8-degree value is remarkably consistent across both warm and cold periods in the PhanDA reconstruction. Now, the numbers you usually hear today, maybe 2 to 5 degrees C, that's typically the equilibrium climate sensitivity, or ECS. It mainly focuses on those faster feedbacks, the response over decades to centuries, not these vast geological timescales with all the slow feedbacks included. So AESS is a much broader, deep time measure of sensitivity.
That's a really helpful distinction. AESS captures the whole Earth system adjusting over millions of years, not just the relatively faster responses we model for near-term climate change. So this 8-degree sensitivity seems pretty consistent. But were there any periods where the CO2 temperature link wasn't so clear? Any anomalies?
Yes, there was an interesting wrinkle. They pointed out something that they termed the Mesozoic conundrum. During the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs, the relationship between CO2 and global temperature seems less clear in their reconstruction. It gets a bit fuzzy. Now, this could be down to gaps in the proxy data we have for that specific era, or maybe there was some genuine decoupling happening then, some other factor becoming more dominant temporarily. It's definitely an area needing more research.
A conundrum for future studies. Okay, we've explored this incredible new view of Earth's deep climate past, but let's bring it back to today. For you, the listener, why does digging into this 485 million year history really matter for us now and for our future?
I think it provides absolutely critical context. PhanDA shows our planet's climate system is capable of far more dramatic shifts than maybe we appreciated from older records. It underlines the power of CO2 over long timescales. It also gives us fascinating insights into how life itself has managed to persist and evolve through periods of truly extreme heat. And it leaves us with big questions like, why is that apparent Earth system sensitivity, that AESS, so remarkably constant around 8 degrees C across hundreds of millions of years, what really sets that value? It suggests that Earth's temperature is, in principle, highly predictable if we know the CO2 levels. But we still don't fully grasp how all the deep time forces and feedbacks interact and balance out. There's still more to learn.
That constancy is really striking. What stands out to you most about Earth's ability to flip between these vastly different climate states? And what might that tell us about the resilience of life itself in the very long run? We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Earth's 485 million year temperature history. If you found this information as fascinating as we did, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the Sand Science Experience for more insights into the most current and impactful research in science.